There's some scriptures I have to go through. It's specifically about the end times and the rapture. Like specifically about it. And when I was little, God already told me this, right? This is like, I wouldn't call it voluntary work. I would call it like a decision. Like, you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. Something like that. All right. I want to talk about a certain pastor. Arrogance. That's it. Arrogance. Okay. When I was a little girl, right? I was in Jamaica. There's this one pastor, right? He was talking in the church, and that was the first time, I went to a big church like that. And I'm always raising my hand because I want to ask questions. And I said, I have a question. And he answered it. Right? And then he said something else in him talking. And I raised my hand again. I'm like, I have another question. He said, wait till the sermon is over. And then if you have any questions, because he can't keep stopping and tell me what it is. And he's trying to talk. So I'm like, all right. So I was a little upset because I didn't understand what he was talking about. So even when he was done, I still didn't understand. So he asked me, when it was over, he called me up and said, what you didn't understand? I'm like, I didn't understand what you were saying. And we were talking back and forth to certain things. And I'm like, I said, when I grow up, I want to be a pastor. I want to talk in church. That's what I said to him, my little self. And he's like, a woman cannot speak in the church. I'm like, who told you that? And he said, it's written in the Bible. I'm like, really? But this is what God told me. And he said, when you get older, you're going to meet. And you're going to show him that a woman can speak. I said, all right. So I'm older now. And during my time talking, right, growing up, I went to another church. I was a bit of a teenager this time. And this church, right, everybody was standing up, and he touched every single body. He touched, and everybody fell down. But when he touched me, I didn't fall. And I'm looking around, and everybody like, why everybody's on the ground, and I'm the only one here standing. And I stand there, and I felt like crying, because I felt like I was standing alone. And it's like God put in my spirit, don't be afraid or scared that you're standing by yourself. I'm like, okay. So on my way back from that church, because it was a group of us, I'm in the back of the church. I'm in the back of the bus. I was like, God, I want to do what they do. I'm like, do I have to go to school for this? He said, what? what I'll teach you, they won't know. I said, oh, okay. So now, I was like, okay. Me, my adulthood, and I'm talking to things I'm saying, and I'm like, it makes sense now, because certain things that I'm saying now, it's not like what a lot of people are saying, and how in depth God is taking me through the Word. It's something else, because the first thing He told me to go through is Nebuchadnezzar, and that was like the key. That was like the key, because once I went through Nebuchadnezzar, it led me through the exile. Because I'm like, I did not know the exile happened. I did not know about tribes of Judah. And cause growing up, nobody talks about the tribes of Judah. And God led me to that. And then I noticed that Revelations and Nebuchadnezzar, right? And then God led me to Jacob. And when he went to Jacob, then is when I found out about the tribes. I was like, okay. And then he led me back to Revelations, and then he showed me how the tribes are connected. I said, okay. Then he led me to Abraham. And then into Abraham, I found out he had more kids than just the twins. I thought, oh, wow, Abraham had children. And then when I looked down the line of Abraham, I'm like, oh my goodness. He actually, when he married one, he didn't like just ran off and go marry another person. He did not do that. Each woman was with him separately, except for the one that his wife told him that he can go have a baby, because she thought she couldn't give him one, And in the midst of it, she cried to God for him to, because she felt jealous, and that woman was really being, Hagar was being like mean to her, and I see that in today's world. But when a woman have been the first one to give the child to a man, how they act. So understanding that, I'm like, oh wow. And then God led me to Esau. And then when I saw how Esau was a good man, and he was very old, and notice when he left Adam died, right? And I'm looking how Enoch and how Adam came, and then he led me to Noah. That's the part right here, when he led me to Noah, and then understanding it was 2 by 7. You know what I mean? It was 7 of them, but by 2. I was like, oh wow. Then I thought about creation, the beginning. So that say that it's probably, so there was more than just Adam and Eve here. It's Adam and Eve were by themselves, because the watchers were watching somebody. They wasn't watching themselves. So they were watching other people. There was other people. So it was the 7 of 2s with the flood. I mean, there were 7 of 2s with humans. That means Adam and Eve were by themselves, and there were other people here. That means Adam and Eve were for God. And the rest of them were just for them. But you notice, once what happened with them happened to all. So I'm like, okay, this is serious. It's all connected together. And then this is the part when God said, this is a story, how the struggle and the pain and suffering it took for Yeshua to be born. And then when you look at the storyline for Yeshua to be born, you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, it was evil spirits here and pestilence here. So that tells us down here is a prison. It's a prison. Because when he led me to that, he led me back to Genesis. And when I go back to Genesis, the first part of Genesis tells the main part of the whole Bible. Like the main part of the whole Bible. When we said the end already happened. The fall of Satan was the end because he took him out of heaven and made a place for him to go. And since God already have his children chosen already, that's why it's 2 books. So there's a book of life where all the life creation never made it here. And there's a book of the Lamb. That's where all of his children is. See, even when this is when you understand about the wheat and the weed. I'm like, oh wow. It makes sense. Because he said, make them grow up together. And when it's harvest, we can reap them together and separate the wheat from the weed. I said, it makes sense. So the whole Bible, the whole scripture, it's about how the end will be for our beginning. Basically, Revelation is telling you the destruction of evil for the new beginning of his children. And why he wrote in parables and stuff was to hid the fact that he had his own children here already. And us understanding that Revelation is telling us about the new beginning, how the new beginning will start. Because remember, God rested. How sin came, he rested. He was resting. And then when I went through Peter, because God was leaving me all over the place. And then when you go to Peter and he tells you that is 1,000 years for man is one day to God, my mind go boof. Like, wow, God's Sabbath day. That's what this whole thing is about. This Holy Scripture is about God's Sabbath day that we need to prepare for. That's what it is all about. The Sabbath day. God's Sabbath day is coming. And that was the warning from all the apostles. They were telling us the Sabbath day is coming. And we need to prepare for the Sabbath day. Because God is going to rest with us on the Sabbath day. Because the first Sabbath, Satan destroyed the peace of man. So time began and flesh was marked